Today I'm going to illustrate the use of fruit in the making of jams and jellies. Here I have a quince, which I am going to make into a quince jelly. We color the jelly slightly with pink food coloring to give it a pleasant color. And we bottle either in bottles from leftover from mayonnaise or honey or jams, which have metal lids, or we use specifically made bottles made by Consul, which have the wider mouth but also still have the metal lid. We use this, the second type of jam that we have is marmalade. This is made from a combination of citrus fruits, which contain a large quantity of pectin, and you find that it sets very well once it has been made. All jam that you make must be very clearly labeled with the name and with the date. The first thing I'm going to demonstrate is how to prepare the fruit. Here I have a quince, which makes a very good jelly to be eaten with meat. And I have a green Granny Smith apple, which makes a very good apple jelly, also usually eaten with meat. Both lots of fruit have been carefully washed, and now I'm going to show you how to prepare them. Quinces are very hard indeed, and they cannot be eaten raw. Cut them in half, cut them in quarter again, remove the core and the flower end of the quince, and wash them. What we are trying to avoid is including any of the dried flower parts. Once you've done that, the quince must be chopped up into small pieces, because the larger the surface area, the more pectin will be extracted, the more pectin and the more flavor when the quince is boiled to form the jelly. When you're working with an apple, you remove the stalk, cut the apple in half, cut it into a quarter again, and all you remove when you're going to make apple jelly is the flower section of the apple fruit. Here the seeds and the core are left in because they contain large quantities of pectin. And once again, the apple is cut up into neat blocks to increase the surface area. These quinces have been chopped up and they have been boiled for a good 30 minutes so that the flavor and the pectin have leached out into the water. Now, when you're making a jam jelly, you do not use the fruit, so we have to strain this liquid off the quince pulp. And for that, we are going to use a large Pyrex dish into which we put a colander, and we are going to use a piece of cheesecloth, which must be damp. So I will damp that now. The damp cloth must be well wrung out, and then it is pressed into the colander. I am going to pour the prepared quinces Now you allow this to stand and drain for at least an hour so that all of the juices go through the muslin cloth into the bottom bowl. Here I have quince pulp that has been drained, and this is then removed and thrown away. Remove the colander as well. And here I am left with my quince juice. What I'm going to do is a pectin test. I need 25 milliliters of methylated spirits, and 12 milliliters of the juice. I twirl it round the cup and leave it for 3 minutes before I pour it out on the saucer. The remaining juice I am going to measure. And here I have 1 liter of quince juice. I return it to the pot, and to that I'm going to add 75 milliliters of sugar. The proportion of sugar is 3 to 4, 3 sugar to 4 juice, as the quinces are not particularly tart. Having waited for 3 minutes, I'm now going to pour the methylated spirits into a saucer, and looking at that, I can see large lumps of pectin. The methylated spirits dehydrates the pectin, causing it to gel, and it indicates to you how much pectin there is in your juice, and therefore it dictates how much sugar you can actually add. And the quince, you can see here, there are large lumps of pectin, which indicates that the quince juice has a lot of pectin in it. If this was not so, I would use commercial pectin to add to my jelly. It is apple pectin, and because it's such a fine powder, you would take your apple pectin and add it to your sugar. Add it to the sugar so that it is very evenly distributed before you add it to the juice. You cannot just take pectin powder and put it into a fluid because it forms lumps. So we add our pectin to our sugar, mix it well, and then add that to the juice. The other factor that we have to check, if it is at all possible, is whether the pH of the juice is below 3.3. If it is below 3.3, it is perfect. If the fruit that you have been using is not very acidic, we would then have to add some lemon juice to lower the pH. Here I have my juice. As I've said before, in my pot, I'm going to add my 750 milliliters of sugar to it and return it to the heat and slowly heat it until the sugar is dissolved, stirring it every now and then leaving it to boil until it reaches a temperature of 105 degrees Celsius, which indicates that the sugar has reached the right saturation. Here I have my quince syrup, and as you can see, the sugar has all dissolved, but the color is not as good as it should be. And with an apple jelly, the color does not even become this golden color. So we use a vegetable coloring dye to make them pink. This one is a rose pink vegetable dye, food dye. Here I'm using a dropper, which controls the amount that I use, and I have dissolved a small quantity in some water, and I'm going to add that to the quince juice to turn it a pale pink, which is a more attractive color for quince jelly and also for apple jelly. If you use guavas, you find that if they have pink centers, your juice will be pink enough. Add the coloring little by little so that you don't make the pink too deep. And there I think I have the right color. The right color, a golden pink quince syrup. And now I'm going to return this to the heat so that it can start reaching the correct temperature. If you're making jam at home or in a kitchen where you do not have access to a thermometer, you can judge the readiness of the jam by the formation of the bubbles. The jam starts to rise up the sides of the pot, and the bubbles seem reluctant to burst. They are very, very sticky, and quite large bubbles are formed. And also, if you listen to the sound the bubbles are making, you will find that they are making a sticky plop that will indicate that the jam is ready. The other way of telling is to put a wooden spoon into the jam and allow the jam to run off. As it runs off, it creates a long sugar string and drips very reluctantly. When this happens, you know that the jam is ready. When bottling your jams and jellies, you can either use a professional glass bottle made by Consul that has a special lid where you have the top and then you screw the top down. Or you can collect used bottles from mayonnaise, honey, any bottle that you have in your house, but it must have a metal lid. You cannot use bottles that have plastic lids and hope that the jam won't go off. These bottles must be absolutely clean, with no labels. The lids must be clean, and then they are put into the warming drawer so that when you pour the hot jam into them, they do not crack. Here I have my quince jelly, which has boiled until it's reached the temperature of 105 degrees Celsius. And I am now going to pour this jelly into my bottle. The bottle needs to be full, which this one is not. While the jelly is still warm, the bubbles will rise to the top. You immediately screw your lid on as tightly as you can, and you leave the jam to cool down. And as it cools, it creates a vacuum and sucks the lid on even tighter, sealing it so that no bacteria or yeasts can get into the bottle and make your jam decay. The jam must cool down completely, and it will only set after about 24 or 36 hours. It won't set as quickly as an ordinary gelatine jelly would. The bottles must now be very clearly labeled, indicating what is in them and also the date on which they were made. This jam in this bottle will now last for about 6 months. One of the other jams that we make is made from citrus fruit, and it's known as marmalade. We can use a combination of grapefruit and orange and lemon, or only grapefruit and lemon, or only lemon. You can mix and match the citrus fruits as you please. The most important thing to remember about marmalade is that we actually eat the peel and the flesh of the fruit once it has been turned into marmalade. So the most important thing to remember is that the peel must be sliced very, very finely indeed. The peel must be almost transparent. It's sliced so finely. Once you have sliced up your choice of fruit to form about 1 liter of pulp, you put the pulp into your pot with the necessary water, and you boil the fruit pulp until the peel is very, very soft. Now this has been boiled until the pulp is soft, and you can test it by squeezing it through with your thumbnail, and your thumbnail must go through very, very quickly. Or you can take the side of the spoon and you press the peel with the edge of the spoon against the side of the pot, and must pass through the peel very cleanly, indicating that the peel is soft and cooked. You measure the volume of the pulp, and here we don't drain it through a muslin cloth because we keep all of the pulp and the juice. You measure the volume and you put equal volumes of sugar to the volume of the pulp. So if you have 2 liters of pulp, you're going to add 2 liters of sugar. You do not have to worry about pectin tests because grapefruit, oranges, and lemons have very high pectin contents.